The Battle of Bull's Gap is considered to be one of the most important battles that took place in East Tennessee. Even though it was a loss for the Union Army, it is not a total victory for the Confederate side either. The area was important as it was the location of the East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad, which was advantageous to both sides during the Civil War. The two generals to meet in this battle was Confederate Major General John C. Breckinridge and Union Brigadier General Alvan C. Gillem. This conflict lasted 3 days and only ended when one side ran out of supplies. Come along with us as we take a look at the battle for Bull's Gap, Tennessee. All aboard the Kentucky-Tennessee Living Time Machine. Please fasten your seat belts and keep your arms and legs inside of the vehicle at all times. But to get going, we need your help. We still need to fire up that time machine to transport us. Please help us by clicking on the like, subscribe, and bell notification buttons down below. Not only does this fire up the time machine, but it convinces YouTube that we need a bigger time machine to reach more people who love history as much as you do. Now, back to our story. Actions and skirmishes at Bull's Gap. According to the website Northeast Tennessee Civil War, Battle of Bull's Gap, there were several military actions that took place in the area before the actual battle itself took place. These were done in an effort to rid East Tennessee of the Confederate influence and to protect those that supported the Union in its wartime efforts. Bull's Gap was one of the areas to be protected because of the East Tennessee and Virginia Railroad line. Bull's Gap was crucially important to both the Union and Confederate armies, as it was a vital artery between Northeast Tennessee and Knoxville. Several conflicts would take place between the two opposing armies from October 1863 to the end of the war in spring of 1865. The two sides meet. Early in November of 1864, Confederate Major General John C. Breckinridge ordered his troops to go further into East Tennessee from his position in Virginia. The mission was to secure land for food and forage, as well as to drive the Union troops from the area. Union troops under the command of Brigadier General Alvan C. Gillem was moving just past Greenville, Tennessee. He was in command of many of the men from Johnson City who composed the Company D, 13th East Tennessee Cavalry, and the 8th East Tennessee Cavalry. Gillem's scouts came back to him with the report that a large Confederate force was approaching their position. The Confederate troops that were headed toward Gillem's position were 6 companies of the Sullivan County Reserves, often called the Invalid Corps. This was because they had no assigned officers or command. After the first 1,000 troops had arrived by train at Jonesboro, Tennessee, the scouts had spotted them marching through Leesburg toward their camp position. With the goal of protecting the railroad in mind, Gillem's troops fell back to Bull's Gap to dig in for the battle and wait for supplies and reinforcements. The Battle of Bull's Gap. On November 11, 1864, at 11 a.m., the Confederates attacked the Union Army, but could not gain ground, as both sides were using artillery fire that lasted throughout the day. Both sides met on the battlefield the next morning, November 12th. The Confederate Army hit the Union Army from multiple locations, but this did very little to break the Union line. The next day, November 13th, the Confederates tried to flank the Union on the right side, with shots being fired most of the day. Gillem sent a rider to Russellville to see if a train holding supplies, ammunition, and reinforcements had arrived. The scout came back to the general with bad news. It was not there, and there would be no train coming. With supplies running low, Gillem made a decision to leave Bull's Gap. After midnight, the Union side had run short on all of its supplies, including ammunition and rations. Taking notice of what the Confederates were trying to do, Gillem withdrew his troops to Russellville before they could be outflanked. The 13th East Tennessee held the rear until their ammunition ran out, giving the other Union troops time to escape. It was then every man for himself, while Breckinridge pursued the withdrawing troops, causing a chaotic retreat of the Union Army, as it had been a running fight every step of the way. Bad weather played a role, as roads and streams became flooded, so the pursuing Confederates could not catch the retreating Union troops. Gillem regained control over his troops and moved them to Strawberry Plains, just outside of Knoxville, where he engaged the pursuing Confederate troops once again. Even though the victory by the Confederate side at Bull's Gap did squash the Federal plans to rid the area of Confederates, their victory was not permanent, as Breckinridge, seeing that he could not gain the upper hand because Gillem now had reinforcements and supplies, withdrew back to Virginia. Thank you. We at Kentucky Tennessee Living would like to thank you for watching our video series on the Appalachian Civil War battles. Don't forget to hit that like button, as the more likes we receive, the more likely YouTube is to suggest our videos to other viewers. Also, to receive notice when we upload a new video, be sure to subscribe and click the bell notification button. We thank you for continuing to support Kentucky Tennessee Living as we are discovering the mysteries in Appalachian history.